Today we're going to have a look at the Sony 24-50 f2.8 G lens. And it is filming me right now. This is what it looks like in a studio setting. How does it look? And it is not my typical lens because I typically use the Sony 24 G Master. But what do you think? Is this cinematic enough? In this video, I'm going to talk about sharpness, bokeh, flare, and more. Chapters in the description. Now back to the G Master. So what do you think? Is there big enough of a difference? Was that good enough for you, or do you need the G Master? So now we're going to have a look at the lens.
The lens is at 24 millimeters currently, and it goes to 50. The aperture wheel at the bottom, automatic, and it clicks into place. F2.8, back to auto. It can be declicked. Right there. Now it's smooth running. On the side, there is an AF on button or custom button. There is a autofocus manual focus switch. The zoom ring, this one's the zoom ring, is smooth. There's no hang-ups or snags. The autofocus, the focus, manual focus, is not quite dampened. It's like a typical Sony. It is electronic. It does work just fine in practice.
Oddly enough, unlike other G lenses, this lens does not have an iris lock.
Here's the front of the lens, 16.7mm filters. The minimum focus distance is 0.19 at the close end, 0.3 at the long end, or 0.63 feet, 0.99 feet. Here's the lens at 50 millimeters. You can see that the element is slightly depressed. Once you go to 24 millimeters, it's towards the center of the camera. Other than that, the lens is weather sealed. You can feel it right here.
All right, next up, we're going to have a look at the range. What does 24-50 really mean? This is at 24 millimeters, f2.8. And how does it compare to other lenses on the market like the Tamron 20-40 f2.8 at 20 millimeters? How does it compare to the 20-70 at 24 millimeters f4? How about at 50 millimeters? And 50 millimeters f4? How about at 50 millimeters f2.8 compared to 70 millimeters f4? How about 50 millimeters f2.8 compared to 70 millimeters f2.8? Next up is bokeh, and you should have a general feel of how it is right now. 24 millimeters right here. And it's just fine in my opinion. I don't see anything particularly wrong with it. No apparent onions or doubling. Maybe there is some if you pixel peep. And when you really want to background blur, you want to be at 50 millimeters. Here, with a deep background, you can get great blurring abilities. Even at moderate distances, the blurring is apparent. However, if you insist on closer backgrounds, then the blurring ability will be subdued. This is not an f1.4 or 1.2 type of lens. All right, we're gonna have a look at the flaring. This is right outside of the edges at 24 millimeters. There's not much going on. However, once the sun is in the frame, you can see right there, the blob. There you go. It does show up. This is not completely flare free. It does have a good amount. It's not a lot, but it is distinct. We'll move on in to 35. Okay. And similarly, the edges are fairly resistant, but if you have it in the center and you have like a darker background, you can definitely see it. Okay, there it is. And let's jump to 50. This is at 50 millimeters. Yes, there's a good amount of flare. So the further you move in, it's just the more magnified the flare becomes. And there is veiling. So it could be better. I wouldn't say it's particularly bad. From my recollection, there are f2.8 zooms on the market that perform a bit better. All right, we're gonna have a look at the sharpness. This is 24 millimeters f2.8 wide open, 1/3 32 thousandths of a second daylight white balance. And I'll tell you right now, the sharpness is this center section right here is really sharp. Basically, this entire center is sharp. However, the sides, they are a bit soft. And if you don't believe me, then good on you for doing your due diligence. However, we will be taking a look right now. Okay, this is 100% on an A7CR, 61 megapixels. As you can see, this is wide open. It is pin sharp. Pin sharp, 24 millimeters, f2.8. But once you get to the edges, there's clear degradation. You can still see the text right here, but you notice that it's softening a little bit, okay? But once you get to the far corners, yeah, it's a little bit soft, but you know, this isn't a real issue. This is only for extreme pixel peepers, and you know who you are, focusing on every little detail, and you're hyper obsessed, then this is going to be the problem for you. I mean, I can still see the details of the branch, but I will say, you know, it improves. Okay, here's F4, 5.6, F8. So I would say that maybe 4 is the max. When I say it's a little bit soft, you know, you can see that the fencing detail you can see, but I'll give you a comparison. Okay, so it's soft because it's being compared to another competitor of Sony, and that is the 20-70G. Here's the G wide open. You can see that the G wide open is it's like better than the 24-50 at any aperture. Okay, so I mean, it is what it is, but this is at 61 megapixels. I mean, is anyone really gonna care that the far corner is sharper on the G? You know, you get these lenses for the f2.8. I totally would not care that much, because if you look at, let's just say we go 50%, okay? More moderate resolutions, you can't tell. It's hard to tell the difference, okay? This is 50% viewed in, the 61 megapixels. It's just that 67%, you can start to see the degradation. 100%, yeah, now you can really see the degradation, but, you know, it is what it is. If you're doing like 40-inch prints or whatever, then yeah, the 20-70G. But on the bright side, it is sharper. I mean, it's sharper than, let's just say, the Tamron. Tamron 20-40. Here it is, 20-40 at f4 compared to the Sony at f4. And even at 50%, the Tamron is like mush. The Tamron never gets to the Sony level, even stopped down. So it's all comparative. It's all subjective. And, you know, I am completely happy with the Tamron, to be honest. Because I don't pixel peep that much. Maybe I should. But I don't want to be hyper obsessive or anything. Okay, so this is the Tamron at f8 compared to Sony at f5.6. I mean, there is enough detail here. I mean, because I'm not going to be shooting high megapixels, but it is a little bit softer than the Sony. But I think the threshold for sharpness is high enough. This is your mileage may vary. Looking at 35 millimeters, again, it is pin sharp in the center and throughout the range. And here we go again, the same thing at 35 millimeters. I mean, there is a good amount of degradation. Before I skip forward, let's just go to cycle through here. Here is 5.6 for 5.6. They're virtually the same. And at f8, even f8, that far corner doesn't clean up. Okay, so I mean, I'm sure it's still better than the Tamron 20 to 40. But if you want pin sharp prime light, sorry, it's not this lens. All right, moving to 50 millimeters. 100% it is pin sharp. It is definitely pin sharp. Does it improve a bit? Let's just jump down. Yeah, there's a slight improvement at f4. And beyond, I mean, it's just academic. It's already super sharp. But you might stop down for the edges because, well, do we know how the edges perform? At 50, it's quite good. Yeah, it is definitely good. This is F2.8 50 wide open. So this lens is definitely stronger on the tele side. And how does it compare to the 20 to 70 at 50? I mean, it's quite comparable. I think it's a tad sharper than to the 20 to 70. Okay. At 50 millimeters wide open, F2.8 is even stronger than the F4. Yeah, definitely stronger. But you know, this is like super ADD level of pixel peeping. So take that with a grain of salt. I mean, realistically, they are very close. They're more closer than not. I mean, that 24 millimeters, the difference was quite large between the two, but at 50 millimeters, the difference is smaller and stopped down. The 20 to 70 is starting to get better. It's at 5.6 though. So let's go to f4 for the Sony 25 to 50. And it's pretty much a match. No, the 24 to 50 is surpassing the 20 to 70. And at 5.6, I mean, you do this for depth of field basically, because at f2.8 is sharp, really sharp. At f4, it's a little bit sharper. And I mean, that's it. You just stop down if you need more depth of field, but no reason to go beyond 5.6. Okay, so this is a focus breathing test. I'm just gonna manually spin it. And it's in between objects. You can see there's quite a bit of breathing. This isn't full rack. It's just between these two objects, because this is more likely what would be done in practice. Where is the rack? There we go. Okay, here's 25 millimeters focus breathing. Background, camera, background, camera. So there's quite a bit of breathing. So thankfully this camera A7CR it does have the breathing compensation, and you'll probably want that if you're using this lens. Let's have a look at the sun stars. We'll go wide and we'll adjust the aperture to f8. That nice wheel is easy to use and it looks nice. I mean, the sun stars are typical G's. They're defined. Even at f8 you can see it. Let's go down further. f11. And you can see the flare trails. Other than that, the sun stars, they look nice. And no issues with that. So definitely a nice one for sun stars. Let's go to 8 millimeters. Yep. This is at a f11 still. It looks good to me. I wouldn't omit this lens if you're a sun star fanatic. It looks nice. It's nice and pointy. That's the way it should be. 24 millimeters for vlogging. This is the Sony ZV-E1 with active stabilization. You can see that it's a bit tight, like your wallet after inflation hits. If this isn't your thing, then it may not matter much. However, if you're hand holding this, it still got a bit of weight to it. It does feel heavy after a while, and you won't be able to handhold for prolonged periods of time. And for kicks, let's have a look at it next to the Sony 20-70G. How do you think it looks in comparison? I know that the 20-70 is a bit heavier, but in practice, they both weigh kind of the same. While the front element on the 24-50 is a bit awkward, 20-70 weighs just a smidge heavier and you can feel it after a long haul. My fragile Asian arms can only hold so much. Bruh. The 24-50G, what do I think about it? Well, I do love the size of it, but there are some flaws. Yes. The sharpness on the wide end was questionable. Actually, through most of the range, 24-35 was a bit questionable if you're a high megapixel pixel peeper, that is. To me, I thought it looked all right. It did get a little bit mushy. Realistically, that is wide open. If you're going to be shooting landscapes, it doesn't matter that much at f2.8. And interestingly enough, at 50 millimeters, it was pin sharp, and that's where the edges typically get the most blurred. So kind of backwards. They should have made 50 less as strong as 24, and 24 should have been better. But other than that, the sharpness wasn't that big of a factor. I mean, the bigger factor to me was this zoom mechanism. It's a small thing. You know, the Tamron has this reverse zoom thing. And with the Tamron, I'm annoyed as it is. With the Sony, it protrudes like twice as long as the Tamron. So this is going to be even more annoying. And I think Sony could have fixed this. They could have really done a better job with this simply by instituting a bucket hood. Okay, so the hood would basically be longer, like this long, and it would cover, you know, the entire time, and it would just stay this long, and all of this zooming action would stay inside of the hood. You wouldn't see it. The focus breathing wasn't great, and I think Sony shouldn't rely too much on electronic fixes, because I believe they can make that focus breathing good, because I mean, Sigma, their lenses, they focus breathe very little, and this thing is going to compete with them. And not all the bodies have that breathing compensation. There's a crop involved, and so at 24 millimeters, you're going to be losing a little bit due to the crop. Other than that, in practice, when you use this lens, it is very versatile. 24 is close to ultra wide. 50 is punched in enough where you can work with people and not exaggerate features that they don't want to get exaggerate. Like if someone needs a nose job and you don't want to tell them, then you use the 50 millimeter and it will give them a more flattering look, even though it's not the typical 85 millimeter portrait, but it still does a job because it's going to get you further away, and your distance, perspective and all that, you need some distance between. Okay, so 50 millimeters does help. Another oddity with the lens is that there is no aperture lock, iris lock. And that is kind of odd because the 16-35 f4G, the 20-70 f4G, they both have iris locks. And the new Gs, the f2.8 Gs, don't have iris lock, and that's just odd. I mean, this lens, it's a G lens, and to be honest, it did not meet expectations. It fell a little bit below my expectations, but my expectations can be off because this is the first. Is it the first? I think it is the first f2.8 zoom that is not a G Master. It's f2.8, and so, you know, maybe my expectations were misplaced, because if this one performed just too well, then where would the 24-70 G Master 2 go? Who would buy that? So this one is a notch below that, and it's still good though. It's not bad at all. And so who's this for? I mean, if you're going to be pairing this with a 16-35, it's going to be great for that. My mistake is 16-25 f2.8G, because Sony is competing with themselves. They are competing with Tamron and Sigma. So Tamron has the 17-28, the 28-75. It's a bigger range, and it's also bigger. Let's just say that. I mean, those lenses, they're gonna be bigger than this one. The Sigma has the same. They have the 16 to 28 and then the 28 to 70. Also, Sigma combo is a little bit bigger, and not only that, they have the mismatch filter threads. If you get this as, you know, a complementary lens for, let's say you have the 70 to 200 G Master 2, I think this would work great for that. The size, weight, and price, it's all fair because you're getting G level weather sealing compared to Tamron and Sigma, which I don't think is going to be on this level. You get G level aperture, click, de-click, and the lens is very rugged. It honestly feels just like my 24 G Master, and it's a G lens. So at the end of the day, it is going to be a good deal. It is going to be highly popular. It is going to be a kit lens for many people, and it's a very strong kit lens for many people, including people with high megapixel cameras. You will have to stop down to get the super crisp sharpness, but it will get there. It is strong once you stop down. Does that mean that it's unusable at f2.8? No. I would use it in a heartbeat. I would not even hesitate about using it at f2.8 because realistically, are you going to use this for landscapes at f2.8? You can always stop down to f4 for a nightscape, night sky, and you'll be perfectly fine. And yeah, that is all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. See you in the next one. Take care.